The best sports time of the year is finally here. It is March Madness time, and a video I just love making every single year for you guys is reacting to the bracket, breaking it down, and giving you guys my March Madness picks for here now in 2025. Man, just seeing the bracket filled out with start times, it just looks so good. And this year's bracket I think is absolutely elite. I think it's so much more competitive than what we had last year too. And like always, I will be doing my bracket group for you guys. It's called SROS, just SROS. Winner is going to get $100. Second place is going to get $75. Third place will get $50. You can do up to 25 entries, and it's absolutely free to join. The link to that will be in the description below. And we'll start off with the South region. This was the first one announced. Auburn got the overall #1 seed, and they will be going up against the winner of the 16 matchup between Alabama State and St. Francis. We have seen 16 seeds in the past beat a #1 seed. We've seen Purdue go down to Fairleigh Dickinson. We saw UMBC upset Virginia, and that started the trend. But I do think Auburn is going to at least make it out of the round of 64. I'm excited to watch Shania Broom, a 5-year college player who may win the Wooden Award this year, and see how far he could take Auburn with Chad Baker-Mazara. Tahan Pettiford could maybe go on a run, and we'll see if Bruce Pearl can finally bring this team. After losing in round 1 last year, they were the upset to Yale, 78-76, and I feel like that was the big bracket buster. But now this is where we have an absolute elite matchup in round #1 here. Louisville was amazing this year in the ACC. They were one of the best storylines all year. When Pat Kelsey took over to be the head coach of this team, Kenny Payne really didn't do the best job, and that may be putting it lightly. And we got to see guys like Chucky Hepburn be one of the best players in the ACC, and Terrence Edwards come over from James Madison and really just make Louisville a powerhouse in a lackluster ACC conference this year. But I think they kind of got screwed over a little bit. And when this happened, I thought, okay, they're not going to be nice to the ACC. And then there's another insane ACC team we'll talk about later on that a lot of people thought shouldn't have got in. So Louisville gets an 8 seed. I thought they should have been a little bit better than that. They draw #9 Creighton here in a great 8-9 matchup. Like, you can see the spread is just going to be 2.5 points. It is going to be a great game. Kalkbrenner, one of the best big men in the country, is going to be a fringe first round pick. We'll see if he can help out his draft stock. Stephen Ashworth been there for a minute now, and they're a good 3-point shooting team. I love the story of Louisville this year, and I'm going to have them beat Creighton, but I am not surprised whatsoever if the Blue Jays do get it done and beat Louisville in the round of 64. One of these teams is going to have a disappointing end to the season, and I don't know, I just think Louisville's been a great story this year, and I think based off vibes, they got the vibes going, and they're going to go up against Auburn in an amazing round of 32 matchup. Now, here's where it's going to be a popular upset pick. Michigan draws the 5 seed, and they get University of California, San Diego. Michigan just won the Big Ten. They had a last-second win against Maryland. They beat Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship, and they are led by their front court. Vlad Golden, the FAU transfer, follows Dusty May, who's done an incredible job for Michigan in his first year, and Danny Wolf, who is going to be a first-round pick most likely in the 2025 NBA draft, because these guys are 7 feet tall. Wolf can handle the ball on the perimeter. He can get inside. He can play make a little bit, and Vlad Golden is a monster on the glass at times. He can get to the free throw line, but UC San Diego likes to score, and the reason why people do like UC San Diego is because they take a ton of threes, and if they're knocking them down, maybe we saw something similar last year when Oakland ended up beating Kentucky. Jack Oakley was one of the best storylines in basketball, and we saw a big team go down because they went up against a team that was just hitting their 3-point shots. I still think Michigan's size will allow them to advance. I think this will be a very popular 12-5 upset, as they usually are, and I don't think people really love Michigan nationwide outside of Michigan, or maybe people that want to see a Big Ten team win. I just think the way they orchestrate their offense and the way they navigate their ball screens, and they're able to run the pick and roll with the bigs, which I love. They can get out in transition. I do think if they went home early in the Big Ten tournament, I would have been like, all right, this is an upset team, but they're on a really good winning streak right now, and I do think they get it done and move on to the round of 32. But here's where I'm also going to have a monster upset. I'm going to have Yale beat Texas A&M, one of the many teams that got in from the SEC. A&M was the worst shooting team in the SEC this year, but they can crash the glass unlike no other, and that could give me a reason for them to advance. But Yale doesn't turn the ball over, and they are just as good of an offensive rebounding team, and they are way better of a shooting team as well. And I think all that blended together, Yale is going to pull off the 13-4 upset and take on Michigan in the round of 32. Okay, so this is also an interesting one. I'm recording this before the UNC San Diego State game, and everybody wanted to talk about UNC making the tournament. I grew up as a UNC fan. I love watching them play, and I always want to root for them this year, but their offense was so tough to watch. It was basically just trying to let RJ Davis cook. Elliot Cadeau took a step back offensively. You felt like you didn't get the consistent strides from Ian Jackson and Drake Powell. Freshmen and their big man play was a little bit underwhelming, at least at the start of the year. They finished off on a strong note. I thought they were going to beat Duke with no Cooper Flagg, but then they ended up losing on that lane violation. I like San Diego State to beat Ole Miss. If it is UNC, I could see RJ Davis having just an incredible shooting game, and that could allow UNC to advance because Ole Miss is a good team this year. They were a very consistent team in the best conference in college basketball. I like San Diego State a ton. So this pick here is me predicting San Diego State to beat UNC and then to beat Ole Miss because I think San Diego State is an underrated team. They were a bubble team going into this, but honestly, it gives me a little bit of collateral just in case UNC wins. I'm taking UNC to also beat Ole Miss. I could totally see that happening, but Ole Miss does have a good resume. They beat Texas, they beat Kentucky, they beat Tennessee, so they could definitely win. Lipscomb versus Iowa State. This is a fun matchup. Iowa State kind of went home early in the Big 12 tournament. I thought they could have been a team to win it, but they had a lot of guys that were injured for this team, and that is going to be a big storyline with them throughout March Madness. It's all going to be about health for Iowa State, and Tamin Lipsey has been great this year, but Keyshawn Gilbert is going to be out for the tournament, which is a massive blow to the Cyclones. But I do think the Cyclones are going to win, and they're going to go up against one of these teams in the round of 32. Man, this matchup in the round of 64 is insane. You have Richard Pitino, the son of Rick Pitino, coaching New Mexico. They have been fantastic this year, the Lobos. And Marquette, I think, had a little bit higher expectations going into the year. Cam Jones was one of the best players in the country, but they didn't make it out of the Big East tournament. They still got in as a 7th seed. But man, Cam Jones versus Donovan Dent, some of the best guards in the whole country going up against each other. This is going to be one of the best games from the round of 64, 100%. I could have saw this as an 8-9 matchup and said we get it as a 7-10. And as much as I would like to see Marquette advance because they could slow the game down, they don't play with as quick of a pace as some other teams. And Cam Jones, Stephen Mitchell, that crew has been incredible this year. And I want to see Shaka Smart deliver. I just think it's the year of the Patinos, man. I do think New Mexico is going to pull off the upset and beat Marquette, and the Lobos are going to advance. Donovan Dent is too good. The spread is 3.5 for Marquette, but I do think the Lobos get it done. And then lastly, Bryant versus Michigan State. Shout out Bryant, man, but I do think Michigan State was peaking at the right time. They didn't win the Big Ten tournament, but Jace Richardson has been on a tear. Cohen Carr can throw down any type of poster on any given night, and Michigan State is really good. Like, they are a team that could be picked to win it all. Tom Izzo has done it before. It was a while ago, but he has been playing on big stages in the past. They beat Illinois multiple times this year. They beat UNC earlier in the year. But Earl Timberlake is a fun player to watch on Bryant, and I'm intrigued to see how close they can make this game. And before we get back into making my predictions here, I want to talk about Pool Genius, which is a great tool that you can use to get the edge against your friends, your coworkers, or anybody else that you're in a March Madness bracket with. It can even be my group this year. And if you want to maybe use a little bit more analytics to give yourself the edge, this is the best tool out there. You can import your group or your bracket through here to give you the edge here in March Madness, or you can go throughout here and pick who you like as well. Like I just recently talked about liking San Diego State over UNC, and you can go through each one of these and you can just optimize your bracket to the fullest. You can look at the decision trees, the power ratings, the Vegas implied odds here, and you could just get so much information. And this is something amazing that I wish I've used in the past, because I take my groups very seriously, especially going up against my friends. I feel like we're just trying to get the edge over each other. And you can see here, like the expected odds to make it to the round of 32, the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, the Final 4, to make the finals or win it all this year, when you're going to make that into your decision here specifically. Like, it's interesting to see that UNC does have better odds to make it to the Final Four than some teams like a Clemson or St. Mary's or Creighton because of the path and the region that they're currently in. And I just talked about how tough it was to take New Mexico over Marquette, and you can kind of look down here at the strength of schedule, their non-conference game ratings, their points per possession, effective field goal percentage, all of that all right here. And it's also great too. You don't have to compare these teams in their region. You can compare them against teams in other regions. Say they do meet each other in a Final Four matchup. And Pool Genius subscribers have won 214% more often than expected. That's the difference between winning a 25-person pool once every 8 years instead of every 25 years. They provide an optimized bracket for your pool, and the data shows single entry users win at a 3.9 times the expected rate. And no matter your pool size or scoring system, Pool Genius has consistently outperformed expectations. And don't leave your bracket to chance. Increase your odds by 3.1 times and get your optimized picks now. 52% of Pool Genius users win a bracket pool prize on average. If you want to stack the odds in your favor, this is how you do it. Click the link in the description or pinned comment below. Build a 100% optimized bracket in under a minute. No research, no stress. Just enter your pool details and Pool Genius does the rest. You can get the edge this March Madness by using Pool Genius. Like I said, link in the description or the pinned comment below. And thank you to Pool Genius for sponsoring my 2025 March Madness bracket. All right, let's get back into this. Duke versus American / Mount St. Mary's. I'm going to go with Duke to win this one. Duke man, they look so good this year. They even look competitive without Malik Brown or Cooper Flagg. And hopefully we do see Cooper Flagg healthy throughout March Madness, because this is where we could see somebody like a Zion Williamson, Ja Morant, or somebody like Evan Mobley or Chad Holmgren, and we could see them on the biggest stage as they're going to lead up their ramp-up process for the 2025 NBA draft. And I feel like March Madness turns maybe the casual draft watcher, college watcher, into like, okay, we're going to see these prospects very soon. I want to be locked in on these guys. Now we're going to get to a little bit of a tougher matchup between Mississippi State and Baylor. As much as I want to see Baylor go up against Duke, Jeremy Roach against his former team, and just see VJ Edgecombe, like I said for Cooper Flagg, showcase on a national stage, I like Mississippi State to win here. They played in a tougher conference throughout the year. Josh Hubbard could score better than a lot of people can that are going to be in this region. And I just think Mississippi State hasn't been the most consistent team this year. I just think Baylor hasn't really done a great job against some of the top tier teams they have played this season. Liberty versus Oregon. This is going to be another popular upset pick, the 12-5. Liberty can score a ton. Oregon does have some really good guys, most notably Jackson Shellstad, who's still one of the more entertaining players to watch in the Big Ten. But Liberty could score. They really can. I still think I'm going to go with Oregon here. So we haven't had any upsets in the round of 64 over here in the East region. Akron, Arizona. This one's looking at me. Like, Carter Bryant could go and be a first round pick in this upcoming NBA draft. They have Caleb Love, who made a name for himself a couple years ago when he helped lead UNC to that 2022 national championship game. But I like Akron to win here. Maybe this is the year of the 13 seeds, because I do have Akron upsetting Arizona. They've only lost one time in the year 2025. They are a smaller team, but they are incredibly deep, and I think have a little bit more depth than Arizona. Arizona is a better team on paper, 100%. But this is March, and I do think it's not going to be the greatest maybe start to the Big 12, as I do have Baylor losing. I mean, Arizona versus Oregon, like another Pac-12 matchup that could have happened, would be really cool to see. But I'm going to have Akron win. BYU, VCU. BYU got a terrible draw here. I like VCU to win. Max Shulga, I've talked about him on my podcast where I've talked a ton college basketball over the last few months. He's one of my favorite sleepers for the 2025 draft. Can play off 2 feet, can knock down threes, can play make. Yegor Demon has been struggling. He's somebody that could be a first round pick, a top 20 pick in the 2025 draft. But BYU has a lot better talent than just Yegor Demon, and they've been playing very good basketball over the last few weeks as well. They blew out Kansas, although not maybe super impressive this year. I like VCU to get it done. I think the A10 should be a more respected conference, and I do think they're able to beat BYU. Wisconsin versus Montana. Montana winning the Big Sky, and they're going to draw Wisconsin here, who did end up losing to Michigan in the Big Ten championship. I like Wisconsin. John Chonji this year has been an incredible scorer for this team, and they lost so many guys in the transfer portal last year. AJ Storr, I think, a most notable one, and they have just been incredible this year. Man, VCU versus Wisconsin, even if it's BYU versus Wisconsin, would be an incredible round of 32 matchup. We have St. Mary's versus Vanderbilt. I think both these teams ended up getting kind of a nice draw because of, like, St. Mary's was going up against New Mexico. I think that would be a terrible matchup for them. Vanderbilt coming out of the SEC. I mean, Jason Edwards has been great this year. And I've talked about Augustus Marcelonis on the podcast as well. Incredible playmaker, can get to the rim, can finish at the rim. I like St. Mary's to beat Vanderbilt. And then Alabama versus Robert Morris. It's going to be Alabama, another incredible deep team. Nate Oates is one of the best coaches in the country. And we'll see if Mark Sears can go on one last run with him and Grant Nelson. So let's hop down here to the West region, which I think is the most loaded region by far. Florida versus Norfolk State. Shout out Kyle O'Quinn. I do think Florida is going to advance. They're playing great basketball at the right time, winning the SEC this year. Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, Alex Condon, who could be a first-round pick this year. This team is deep with guards, wings, and bigs, and I do think Florida is going to advance. Like I said, this is a loaded region. Oklahoma, led by freshman Jeremiah Fears, who could be a lottery pick. I just think it ends here for them. I think they got a terrible draw. I mean, I thought at one point they were going to be a bubble team. UConn this year has been very disappointing, given that they were top seeds the last 2 years, and they won the national championship game, but they lost a ton of guys in last year's draft. Most notably Donovan Clingan and Stephon Castle. Liam McNeely's shot hasn't been great over the last few weeks, but they got solo ball. Alex Caravan can run this offense so well. And I do think UConn with Dan Early is going to get, oh my God, an incredible matchup there against Florida. Two good coaches, and we'll see how UConn can do as an underdog again. Another phenomenal matchup in the West region. Memphis, led by PJ Haggerty, one of the best scorers in the country. And then Nick Clifford, another first-round potential pick here in the 2025 NBA draft. An incredible rebounder and three-point shooter, but can carry this team at times. And I think this is going to be a popular pick between the 12 and 5 matchup. And I really wanted to go I do want to take Memphis here, but I'm going to take Colorado State to pull up the upset. I do feel like Memphis, I mean, they had some great wins this year back in Hawaii and Maui. They beat UConn. They beat Michigan State. They beat Clemson. I just think this is a terrible draw for them. I think I'd rather go up against some other 12 seeds than Colorado State, maybe like a Liberty or UC San Diego. We got Maryland versus Grand Canyon, one of the best environments in all of college basketball there in Grand Canyon, but I'm taking the Crab 5. I know they lost in heartbreaking fashion to Michigan in the Big Ten tournament. I think them being a 4 seed, a little bit low for them. I think they're going to get a very favorable matchup against Grand Canyon. Either it's Gillespie, Reese, Derek Queen. I think the Crab 5 is going to get a great matchup. Even if it's against Memphis, that will be a joy to watch. Mizzou versus Drake. I don't know if I'm being anti-SEC here in some of these tough matchups, but I'm taking Drake to pull off the upset, an 11-6 matchup, because I just love watching Bennett Sturt's ball. I don't know if he's going to go into the 2025 draft. I don't know if he would stay at Drake. Either way, although Mark Mitchell has had some very good games this year, and it's a very good story of Mizzou being competitive this year, man, Drake is so much fun to watch offensively, and they've got some competitive wins this year for a team that is a mid-major, and I think they pull off the upset. So far, I do have every 11 seed winning, which I don't like. Oh my God, which I don't like whatsoever. Texas Tech versus UNC Wilmington. Another fun program in UNC Wilmington, but I do think Texas Tech, led by JT Toppin, one of the best players in the country, will help them advance. Drake versus Texas Tech. That is a sick matchup. Even if it was Mark Mitchell of Mizzou versus JT Toppin would be fun. Bill Self versus John Calipari here in a Big 12 SEC matchup. I mean, both these programs have kind of been disappointing this year. Definitely Kansas, who was the preseason #1. They have an incredibly high average age for a college team. I mean, AJ Storr, Zeke Mayo, Hunter Dickinson, these guys have not lived up to expectations this year, but I do think they get a favorable 7-10 matchup, and they are going to get Arkansas being Boogie Flan back, it looks like, for round 1, which is great for them. I do think Kansas ends up winning this game, but honestly, I thought both these teams would have been a round of 64 exit. I just think one team has to win, obviously. And Arkansas is going to have some depth with DJ Wagner playing better. I mentioned Adu Thero, and you have Zavonimir Visic, and just like a deep team that Coach Calipari brought over there. I do think Kansas just squeaks out a win here, but one of these teams is going to have a disappointing ending. And then St. John's versus Omaha, the trash banging Omaha. Just a incredible storyline this year, but I'm taking the Johnnies, man. Maybe the best story in college basketball. So let's head over to the Midwest. Houston, one of the best defensive teams in the country, will beat SIU, Edwardsville. They got the scissors guy though. The head coach had, like, it was cool. Like, he kept the scissors in a case, like, all throughout his college coaching career there at SIU, and then he's finally able to break them open to cut down the nets. But I do think they're gonna lose to Houston. Not really a hot take there. Great matchup. Gonzaga versus Georgia. We're going to see Asa Newell, a potential lottery pick, on display now. I think Gonzaga, like Ajayi, Khalif Battle, shout out Temple, I think maybe have been disappointing to expectations this year, as we thought they could be a top 10 team in the country when it was all said and done. They did have, I think, a tough non-conference schedule to start off the year. They blew out Baylor in their first game of the year. They beat Indiana, but yeah, you lose to Kentucky, UConn, UCLA. They lost to St. Mary's twice this year. I think there have been ups and downs for Gonzaga, but they do have one of the best point guards in the country in Ryan Nembhard, the brother of Andrew Nembhard. Next up, oh man, McNeese, I think is going to be such a popular pick because of their head coach, Will Wade. He did start his coaching career in his early days at Clemson, and they have like a fun storyline with the student manager. So many fun storylines. I know I sound repetitive, but really so many great storylines in college basketball. But Chase Hunter was one of the best players in the ACC, and I think Clemson, I mean, they went on a run with PJ Hall in the past. I do think they're going to get it done, and they're going to beat a very, I think, popular team to take a 12-5 matchup. So yeah, I did have Colorado State as, I think, my only 12 seed. Yeah, because those are always the upsets people take. Purdue versus High Point. Oh, man, this is an interesting one. Oh, man, like, I want to take High Point because they can score, and they finally got it done and won their conference tournament. But just Braden Smith, I want to keep watching him. And I think Clemson versus Purdue will be a hell of a matchup in the round of 32. We got Illinois versus the winner of Texas and Xavier. I like Xavier a little bit more than Texas. Both teams ended up making it over like a West Virginia. They were bubble teams. I think people are more upset about UNC making it, but I do think Illinois, led by Tomislav Visic, Kasper Shakuchonis, Will Riley, 2 players that could be first-round picks in the 2025 draft, and Kai Boswell. Next up, you have Kentucky versus Troy. I think Kentucky gets it done. They do have a bunch of injuries. Guys are not going to be playing for them in the tournament, but we're going to set up Illinois versus Kentucky, 2 big-time matchups there. UCLA, led by Mick Cronin, against Utah State. Another tough matchup here, 7-10. I like Utah State. They could score the basketball, and I do think UCLA has had its ups and downs this year, but they did finish off on a strong note. And then I'm going to take Tennessee over Wofford. So let's head back up here to the round of 32. Auburn versus Louisville. I think Auburn kind of gets screwed here, going up against Louisville in the round of 32. And I kind of want to take the upset here. I kind of want to take Louisville to beat Auburn. We didn't go up against Auburn this year, but they went up against some other SEC teams, against Kentucky, against Tennessee. Some were good, some were bad. Man, a part of me wants to take, I don't know. Auburn's lost a couple games over the last few weeks. I think they're slipping. I'm taking Louisville. All right, so the Cardinals can definitely lose in the round of 64 against Creighton, but I'm going to have them take, I think they're going to beat Auburn, man. They play such good defense, and they could score. And I love watching Chucky Hepburn play this year. And I love watching Janai Broome, but I think it ends there. Michigan versus Yale. I'm going to have Michigan advance. Michigan versus Louisville. These two teams have met in the national championship before, so there is some history between those two programs. I do think Yale's story ends there. Now, we do have San Diego State / UNC versus Iowa State. Part of me, it's tough not knowing who I'm taking here. I don't think UNC beats Iowa State, but I do think San Diego State could beat Iowa State. I am going to have Iowa State win, but their injuries could honestly make them lose to Lipscomb. Who knows? Maybe this is Ole Miss in the Sweet 16. It's just tough making the bracket right now. If UNC loses to San Diego State, I would change this before March Madness starts at San Diego State. And then New Mexico versus Michigan State. I think whoever wins this Marquette-New Mexico matchup is going to the Sweet 16. There's been a thing in the past where if you're not ranked in the preseason poll and you're a top seed, you tend to not make it far. This year, the two teams that fit that criteria, Michigan State and St. John's. We'll see what happens here. I love watching Cohen Carr and Jace Richardson, but the Lobos, led by Donovan Dent, I think are going to go on a very good run here in March Madness. And who knows? I don't know if Richard Pitino is going to stay at New Mexico, because I think all our eyes are going to be on him, maybe to a Nova job or one of the big schools that have a head coach opening. So let's go up here, or yeah, we can go to the East region. Duke versus Mississippi State. Duke is too good, man. They have the best freshman in the country in Cooper Flagg. And also up there, Con Knipple, come on, Maluach. Isaiah Evans has been shooting lights out. You got Mason Gillis and Sion James, some great defenders. And oh yeah, Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster as well. I think Duke is an easy Sweet 16 matchup. Akron versus Oregon. Oh man, this is tough. I mean, I don't think, Arizona could definitely be playing Duke in the Sweet 16. I'm going to take Oregon to advance. It's just tough to ride Akron all the way there to the Sweet 16. VCU versus Wisconsin. If VCU was playing Oregon, I would take VCU, but they get a terrible matchup against Wisconsin, who I think got underseeded maybe a little bit, and they are one of the best teams in the country. And a surprise here, I do like St. Mary's to beat Alabama and go up against Wisconsin here in the Sweet 16. I think Alabama is a little bit vulnerable right now, and I do worry about their backcourt defense. I wonder how their bigs are going to perform, and I do think if they're in a shootout, it may not end well for them. So yeah, I guess, I don't know. Do I sound like an SEC hater? Maybe I do, because I do have Auburn losing in the round of 32 and Alabama, but don't worry. I'm going to have some SEC teams go very far. Next up, we have Florida versus UConn. This could be an upset. I love Florida though. Everybody's on Florida. A lot of the people at ESPN, Fox, CBS Sport really think Florida could win it all. And then when everybody's on them, I don't know if that happens. UConn, I think, is still a good, it's well coached by Dan Early. They still have a good roster. I don't think they have beating Florida in the round of 32 good roster. So yeah, Florida with their guards, wings, and bigs, they're so well balanced. They've won the SEC, the best conference this year. I mean, I don't know why I'm doing air quotes. It is the best conference. They got so many teams. Only two teams, only South Carolina and LSU didn't make the tournament. Everybody else made it in some way, shape, or form. Colorado State versus Maryland. I'm on the Crab 5. Oh my God. Florida versus Maryland in the Sweet 16. I do think it ends there. Maryland versus Memphis. I would love that as well. I'm okay whoever makes it out of this 12-5 matchup. Drake versus Texas Tech. Bennett Sturts versus JT Toppin. I got Drake. I got Drake going to the Sweet 16. I want to get a double-digit seed in there somehow. And then Kansas versus St. John's. St. John's, their three-point shooting does worry me. They are not a good three-point shooting team. But led by RJ Lewis, led by Kadary Richmond, this team can play defense. They are arguably the best defensive team in the country, and I think that's going to help in the tournament. And then lastly here, the round of 32, I do have Houston beating Gonzaga, also one of the better defensive teams in the country. This could be another upset watch as well, just because Mark Few is still a good coach. Purdue versus Clemson. I don't love Purdue overall, but I do think they're going to beat Clemson to go up against Houston in a fun Sweet 16 matchup. Illinois versus Kentucky. I do think Kentucky is too banked up where they're going to lose, and they're going to make it here to the Sweet 16. We got a couple Big Ten teams here with Wisconsin up there, Oregon, Purdue, Maryland, and now Illinois. And I do think Tennessee is going to advance to the Sweet 16 as well, led by Zakai Ziegler, Chaz Lanier, Jemai Meshack, some great offensive defense all around on that team. So Louisville versus Michigan. I'm on Louisville. This is the story. This is the year of Pat Kelsey, Chucky Hepburn, Terrence Edwards. They're so much fun to watch on both ends of the floor. I'm buying Louisville as a legit team. And then I got New Mexico in the Elite Eight as well. Or excuse me, this is the Elite Eight. New Mexico versus Louisville. One of these teams is going to the Final Four. That is incredible. Duke versus Oregon. It's chalk, but I do believe Duke is the best team in the country, both on paper and watching them live. And then Wisconsin versus St. Mary's. I do think it ends there for St. Mary's. So we have an 8 versus 10 here in the South region. Yeah, we got some dogs there. And then we have Duke versus Wisconsin. A little bit more chalk. Florida versus Maryland. Florida's so good. They really are. It's tough to bet against them right now. And then Drake versus the Johnnies. I'm going to have Johnnies advancing to the Elite Eight. And then we got Houston versus Purdue. I think Houston advances. And then Tennessee is going to beat Illinois. So we have, way more chalk down here. 1 versus 2. 1 versus 2. Who is going to my Final Four? I think, oh man. Okay, so for the storylines, right, I could just have St. John's, Rick Pitino versus his son, Richard Pitino. Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to put the script down. I don't think it's happening, although it would be cool. I'm going to have Louisville beat New Mexico. Donovan Dent's story, incredible Cinderella run ends there. And then Duke versus Wisconsin. If there's a team to upset Duke, I think it could be Wisconsin with Chanje and Blackwell. And they've been so good this year. I know they lost to Michigan in the Big Ten championship, but they've beaten some really good teams. I'm going to have Duke, though. They're too good. They're too well balanced on both ends of the floor. And then down here, we're going to have Florida St. John's. I do think it ends there as well. I just worry if St. John's' three-point shooting never really fixes itself. Could they still play great defense, but are they going to be able to hit clutch shots? Are they going to be able to keep them in games if they're down by 15 or so points because they're not a good three-point shooting team to go on those runs? But their Cinderella story ends there, I think, all year long, because this has been I think the best story, like I said, in college basketball. 25 years they haven't won the Big East, and they win it this year. Rick Pitino being in his 70s, he goes from Iona to St. John's, and they did an incredible job. And I do think Tennessee is going to be Houston. So maybe I was a little bit of an SEC hater against Auburn and Alabama, but I do have 2 SEC teams here in the Final Four. Louisville versus Florida. Man, some teams that were so good in the past that have won national championships. I'm going to go Florida to advance to the national championship game. Didn't even realize, too, if it was Louisville versus St. John's, Rick Pitino against his former team. I do like Florida. And then Duke versus Tennessee. And hey, I try to be unbiased as possible. I try to pick my best brackets. I mean, having Duke in the national championship game as someone that grew up hating Duke and loving UNC hurts. Tennessee is incredible, and maybe they could just keep in games with Rainier Shot and Zakai Ziegler. A little bit undersized against Duke's bigger roster, but we've seen these guys step up, like Con Knipple, Isaiah Evans, Tyrese Proctor, with no Cooper Flag. I think they're going to be just fine. And then in the championship, this is an incredible matchup between Duke, who won the ACC, and Florida, who won the SEC in terms of the tournaments. And I do have Duke winning it all this year. Like I said, it pains me to say that Duke is the best team in college basketball, but I do think they're going to beat Florida and take home the 2025 national championship. And then we're going to see basically most of their roster go into the 2025 draft with Flag, Knipple. I think Isaiah Evans is going to play himself into being a top 25 pick. And then also Kaman Maluwatch as well. And hey, even Tyrese Proctor. So that is going to be my bracket here. I had Louisville and Florida in the Final Four. I had also Duke and Tennessee there as well. And I had some fun, I think, upsets. I think just having New Mexico and Louisville in that Elite Eight is so electric. I wanted to take the Johnnies, but maybe I'd be too biased there being from New York. And that is going to be for me. Don't forget to check out my bracket pool. Link is in the description to join it. Hey, it's free to join. You can do 25 entries and you can win some money throughout it. And then thank you again to Pool Genius for sponsoring today's video. Make sure you check them out. Link in the description as well. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.